you. A lot of people ask me, where does that spirit come from? Why is giving back so important? Why is creating opportunities so important? Why is giving charity so important? And I immediately go to my family story that I want to share with you. I share it with all my friends, and I want to share it with you today. The first book that my dad wrote is called Faith and Destiny. And it's the story of his survival of the Holocaust. My dad was born in a small village in Poland in 1930. And his family was one of the wealthiest families in this village. His father had a lease on the river, 10 kilometers, and fishermen used to work for him. His mother was a business person. They were in charge of giving charity in their town. They always had a pot of soup in front of their house. I was back there 3 times with my family, and it hasn't changed. It's like going back in time. It's like Fiddler on the Roof. Stone houses, thatched roofs, beautiful fields and streams. And if there wasn't paved roads, you would think you were right back there 80 years ago. Well, in 1941, when my dad was 11 years old, his life changed forever. The Nazis rolled into his village, burnt down his house, gathered all the Jews they could find, took the rabbi of his town and 35 other people, made them wash their horses, drink the dirty water until they all vomited, dragged them in front of everyone, cut their beards, made them dig their own graves, and killed those 36 people in front of everyone, and made those 1,000 Jews walk 20 kilometers with the shirts on their back to a Jewish ghetto 20 kilometers away, surrounded with 4 blocks of barbed wire, and now thousands and thousands of Jews from all these different villages were living in slave labor, working for the Nazis. My dad was the oldest child. He had 3 brothers and a sister. Him, his mother and father, and his brothers and sisters were huddled in one room with hardly any food. They were given certificates to work for the Nazis. If you were a doctor, a nurse, a laborer, somebody could use, they gave you a certificate. But then they would roll into the ghetto unannounced and do selections, where they gather everybody they could find, force you into a marketplace, and point left and right. If you had a family member that had a certificate, they would allow you to live and send you to the line to live, to work for them. But if they found a young kid or an old person, they'd send them to the line to die, and they'd build these mass graves and kill 3,000 people at a time. Well, in 1942, my dad was 12 years old. He had been in the ghetto for 6 months, and he couldn't get back to his family's hiding place in time. He got caught alone, forced into the marketplace. He found himself in this horrific scene. Nazis taking little babies and killing them with bayonets and throwing them like footballs, shooting people randomly, beating people. He's getting shoved to the top of the line, and he sees the pointing left and right. And he realizes at 12 years old, the only way he's going to live is if he starts asking people with these certificates to pretend that he's their son. He goes to people he knows from his village. There's thousands of people there from different villages. Will you take me as your son? They know him. They're afraid of their lives and their kids. It's written on the paper, your children. It's a real risk. They're saying no. He's getting shoved to the top of the line. He starts asking people he never met before, will you take me? Will you take me? Will you take me? No, no, no. Right before he gets to the top of the line, there's a beautiful woman with a nursing certificate with 2 little girls with her. One is 7 and the other one is 5. She's never met him before. She looks at him and she says, if they're going to let me live with my 2 young girls, they'll let me live with 3. Hold my hand. He holds her hand on one side, the 7 and 5-year-old girl on the other. They get to the top of the line. The Nazi starts looking at her paper, and her husband's in the line to live with his paper. And he starts yelling, my Frau, my wife, my kids. There's confusion. They shove him to the line to live. She saves his life. He never sees that woman again after that. 6 months later, there was the final liquidation of the ghetto. They were killing everyone. He got caught with his mother, 2 brothers, and a sister. His father and 1 brother escaped into the woods. And his mother, they were holed up in the 2nd story of this movie theater, and they were all going to get killed. And his mother said to him, I want you to live. The world is going to someday need you. I'm going to break this window. I'm going to break this window. I'm going to throw you out, and you're going to go find your father and brother in the woods. And don't forget to tell the world what has happened. He gets pushed out the window. Another mother sees what's happening, and she throws her 8-year-old son out the window that my father has never met. His name is Abe Goldstein. He takes him with him, and he saves his life. My father, they sleep in the woods. They walk to another slave labor camp that wasn't liquidated. My father finds his brother. Abe finds a family member, a cousin that takes him. 2 weeks later, my father's father finds out that they're in this slave labor camp. Him and his brother escape from the slave labor camp with his father, and they live in the woods for 2.5 years. Starvation, disease, 40 degrees below zero in caves, partisan fighting. 80% of those people that go into those woods do not survive. He comes out as a skeleton at 15 years old. With his father and brother, they go to Austria to a displaced persons camp to recover. In 1947, he's trying to get into Israel. He can't get into Israel because it's still under British mandate. And he was lucky enough to get sponsored by a distant relative to come to Brooklyn, New York. He comes to the United States at 17 years old. No money, 10 jobs. Starts becoming religious as part of his experience and starts studying to become a teacher and a rabbi. Brooklyn High School, he graduates high school in 1 year. Brooklyn College, Yeshiva University. Now he's 23 years old and he's almost a rabbi. And he goes to a wedding of some survivors of his town in Brooklyn, New York. And he's sitting at this wedding table, and there's a beautiful girl at the table. And she's telling everybody a story about friends of hers from Hartford, Connecticut, that saved a little boy from our town in a selection line. He's sitting at this table, and he cries out, I'm that boy, where are these people? 3 weeks later, he goes up to Hartford to meet the nurse that saved his life and marries my mother, who's a 7-year-old girl in that selection line. I want to share that story with all my friends because it inspires us to believe that anything is possible in life, that we should never, ever give up, and that miracles do happen. And when we have a chance to bring our humanity to the moment, we do it. One part of the story that I left out is that when my father's mother shoved him out of the window, and the 2 boys fell in the high grass outside the Kino, there was a German soldier on the corner with a machine gun that saw and heard the boys fall. He looked at my father, he looked at his mother in the window, and he turned the other way. He brought his humanity to the moment.